Okay. So thank you for inviting me to speak. I also very much appreciated visiting Japan for the Technical AI Safety Conference in Tokyo. I had a fantastic time. I loved visiting Tokyo. It's wonderful. I'd never been before, and I was pleased to meet some representatives from Align at the conference. And yeah, I welcome the more further opportunities to speak to the Align network and Japanese researchers. So the purpose of my talk today is to give an update on the state of AI safety field building, as I understand it, such that it might benefit the Align network and the Japanese research community, perhaps others if they find it interesting. I can speak to my experience at MATS, at LISA, various other projects I've been involved in, but I'm not, the single expert on this phenomenon of AI safety. So I'll do my best, and we can have lots of questions. So who am I? Well, I did a PhD in physics at the University of Queensland in Australia, in Brisbane, which is where I grew up. And during that PhD, I became interested in AI safety, and I did a limited amount of research on the topic before realizing after my PhD that there wasn't much of a pipeline into the field. So new researchers had a lot of problems entering AI safety. And I joined a program called MATS as a scholar. There was 5 of us in the first round. It was a pilot program. And I thought, I want to help this program grow. And so I joined the leadership team, and the old leadership team left. And I helped grow the program into what will now be a 90-person program twice a year. So I can describe more about that later. And along the way, I also helped co-found an office in London, an AI safety office, which with the acronym LISA, which stands for the London Initiative for Safe AI. And this is, as far as I understand, the preeminent AI safety community space for organizations pursuing AI safety projects in London and the UK. And this is to complement offices such as Constellation and FAR Labs in Berkeley. I'm speaking out of FAR Labs right now. So this is in Berkeley, California, the epicenter of the AI safety movement, quite close to San Francisco, the epicenter of AI development, as I understand it. So yeah, so these 2 offices are part of, I hope, a growing chain of community spaces for AI safety. And last year, I also was nominated to join the re-granting program at a platform called Manafund, where I was given $50,000 to give to promising projects. And this year I was given $250,000. I've only spent about $41,000 so far. So first off, what is artificial general intelligence? When will it be here? And how might it change the world? So there's one definition here of artificial general intelligence from a forecasting platform named Metaculus. So they say artificial general intelligence, strong AGI, has to pass a 2-hour adversarial Turing test, which is where you are in a chat interface with the model. Perhaps there's some sort of images, and you can ask it any question you like. And you don't know if it's an AI system or a human. If that system can like successfully deceive humans, then that is passing the adversarial Turing test, if the humans think that is in fact a real person. Additionally, this system would have to also have combined capabilities to assemble a model car. It would have to achieve 75% on this measuring multi-task language understanding benchmark, and 90% on average. And it'd have to achieve 90% top 1 accuracy on the APPS benchmark, which measures its coding ability. So top 1 means the first time you prompt the model. So this is a very powerful system. This system could maybe automate most jobs that could work from home. It's quite a powerful system. When would this occur? Well, according to Metaculus, and a separate, this question, September 25, 2031 is when this system will occur. As you can see from the history of predictions, around 2050 was a very common prediction for many years, until recently, with the recent developments in language models, we see, in fact, that 2031 is the median prediction on that forecasting platform. That's very soon. How did we get here? Well, as you can see from these plots from Epoch, which is the preeminent organization that charts the technological progress of AI, we're currently at this point where the compute spent on frontier language models is growing at a rate of 5 times per year. And if the returns on this compute, that is the performance of these models, keeps growing proportionally, then we are in for a wild ride, and 2031 seems plausible. And of course, here are also aggregated from Epoch many different types of forecasts that have been made on when AGI will occur, or transformative artificial intelligence, which is a separate but related definition. And the 50% mark is about where the prediction is on the left, so somewhere along the 50% line. And as you can see, they greatly disagree. But if you take the judgment-based geometric mean of odds, which is you look at all these different types of forecasts, you see that does seem slated for some time after 2040. So interestingly, the Metaculus prediction has jumped a lot sooner since then. So I think this 2031 might be still the best synthesis, might be the best prediction we have so far. So how will this change the world? Well, people disagree substantially on how much labor can be automated. As you can see, all of these different meta-analyses come up with different levels of automatability for every one of these professions. There's no consistent belief across this. We don't know. We just don't know how much of these professions can be automated. If I were to guess, I would say almost all professions that are purely digital. But I'm not an expert. It could also significantly affect economic growth. The definition of transformative AI is that this would cause GDP to grow at 20 to 30% growth per year. So instead of a 2 to 3% growth, which is the normal, this would be 10 times that. What that means is the entire world economy would double in about 3 years. That is incredible. How might this occur? Well, maybe if you build AI that can help accelerate scientific research and development, this better AI, it can aid further AI automation, which can increase the amount you can spend on training. It can improve the hardware you run the AI on by doing scientific research. It can improve the software, and this can increase the amount you can spend on compute for the next training run, which makes you a better AI, right? And just this cycle just keeps going around and around and around. And as long as there are capacities for AI systems to aid with human scientific research and development, then we end up with better AI. And this could push us into a very powerful AI regime quite quickly if there aren't impediments. And currently, I don't know of any significant impediments. How might it change the world in a societal sense? Well, there are 3 different types of superintelligence as defined by Nick Bostrom, Oxford philosopher. There's quality superintelligence, which is smarter than humans. There's speed superintelligence, which is faster than humans. And there's collective superintelligence, which is more numerous or organized than humans. And I suspect we might have all 3 types of these superintelligences quite soon. This is a worrying prospect for society. I don't understand yet whether artificial intelligence would have to be sentient. I don't believe that's the case. I don't understand what the moral rights of artificial intelligence systems would be, whether they should have rights as we give to other sentient beings. I don't understand how they might be governed or regulated, especially if they have citizenship rights. This is a very strange world we're entering. Not only are we perhaps creating a new form of life, which we're not aware of, but this new form of life could be more numerous, cheaper to run than humans, and smarter by far, and perhaps better being organized as well. So, what is our mission at MATS in particular? Well, AGI might be near, as we've seen, 2031. It might be dangerous as well. Here is a graphic representing the Metaculus Ragnarok series predictions about how likely each of these different types of disasters are to permanently curtail humanity's potential. So the yellow represents a 10% loss of life of the entire planet over a 3-year period. So you can conclude that there's about a 30% chance, according to the prediction, that 10% of the world's population dies over a 3-year period between now and 2100. That is very large. So there seems to be a lot of risks besetting humanity. However, if you look at the risks of extinction, permanent destruction of 95% or more of the world's population, then we see that only artificial intelligence seems to be a really serious threat here. Bioengineering poses a 1% risk, and AI seems to pose a 9% risk, according to these prediction platforms. Now, many people disagree. So here is a famous set of, this is for P-doom, or probability of AI doom, as expressed by many different types of researchers. We have names like Yoshua Bengio, who believes there's a 20% chance AI will destroy humanity. Elon Musk, between 10 to 20% chance. Paul Christiano, one of the founding fathers of AI safety, 46%. Eliezer Yudkowsky, another founding father, more than 99%. So there's quite a range of opinions here. And most of them are higher than 9%, though perhaps these are selected for being people who have higher probabilities of doom. Well, how do we solve this problem? It seems that currently it's talent constrained. So I have in here a graphic. This is a model I don't perfectly agree with, but it's very interesting and useful. This is parameterizing the difficulty of solving scientific problems in terms of like the number of researchers that were required to solve the problem. So for building the steam engine, we perhaps quite a lot of labor went into that, but probably far less than was required for the Apollo program. And this probably would require less consecutive research hours than the P versus NP problem. Although the P versus NP problem is less of an engineering challenge and more of many individual mathematicians constructively building up a field. So according to Chris Olah of Anthropic, who made this graphic, who leads their interpretability team, he thinks that constitutional AI and RLHF put us just about past the steam engine in terms of the scientific progress completed. Now, he has a probability distribution here over how hard he thinks the problem is. If it's as hard as is required to be solved by the Apollo program, then that takes a lot of researchers, somewhere around 90,000 scientists and engineers potentially. And if we expect AGI by 2031, and perhaps transformative AI, that 20 to 30% economic growth by 2039, then we're nowhere close with the current growth rate of the field at 28% per year. Well, we believe we can help. So currently MATS is part of this pipeline you see on the right. We are somewhere in this transition funnel from informed talent who understand the scope of the problem into empowered talent who can work on the problem. We're not necessarily trying to take people who are completely unaware of the AI safety problem, but sometimes some of them are very accomplished scientists, and so we want to advertise to them and help them as well. But yeah, there seems to be many elements of this pipeline, and we think that every single part of this pipeline is important to focus on. Over here, we have another graphic. This represents the probability it's a sort of a probability distribution of impact. What this is showing is there's often a power law, a very long-tailed distribution of impact. So relatively few individuals are going to be capable of most of the work here. So we're casting a very wide funnel or very wide net, and we're selecting only the best. Our acceptance rate in the last program was 7%. Because we had a lot of applicants and we were trying to find just the best people and develop them as fast as we can so that we can use them to build the rest of the field. I want to talk quickly about 3 futures here as an interlude. I was asked to speak briefly about Leopold Aschenbrenner's report, And while I haven't read the entire report, I have read summaries and I have some takes. So the three futures are privatized AGI, nationalized AGI, and an AGI winter, where actually AI progress stalls for perhaps a period of 10 years or more. So in the first picture, privatized AGI, the main players are going to be OpenAI, Anthropic, DeepMind, and Meta. And of course, the AI safety institutes at various countries, including Japan, the US, UK, Korea, perhaps more. So in this picture, probably these are the only players that can successfully buy hundreds of billions or $1 trillion worth of compute chips to train their largest frontier models that might become AGI. And in this picture, the AI safety institutes are probably among the few powers that can actually regulate them. Perhaps the European Union might also be able to help as well. But of course, in this model, we expect AGI to arrive relatively soon, because if it turns out that AGI is actually a national security concern, we expect the governments of several nations to step in. And Leopold Aschenbrenner's report, titled Situational Awareness, came out recently, perhaps just about a week ago. Leopold was a researcher at OpenAI, and he was fired recently from their team for allegedly leaking sensitive information. And he published this report recently, which details his belief that there will be a national security arms race between the US and China, who are the largest developers of AI technologies in the world today. And that it will be basically a race between them to see who can get there fastest, and that the US is significantly ahead, but that this lead might not continue. And Leopold also believes that AGI will occur in 2027. And the third possible future is what I'll call an AGI winter. And this is where it takes more than 10 years for us to find significant new developments that help us build AGI. So up here we have a manifold market poll. This is a way you can make bets online. It doesn't, it's basically, I believe, cashes out charitable donations. That might have changed. But you see here 143 people have bet on this. And the answer is, we don't know. 50-50 chance, 50% chance that we have an AI winter or no before AGI. And if you see here in the bottom, I have three probability distributions over when AI systems would be able to replace 99% of current fully remote jobs. We have Daniel Cocotillo, who recently left OpenAI as well, famously. He was a governance researcher there, and he says 2027, coincidentally the same year as Leopold. Perhaps that's because they share some OpenAI information. Ajay Kotra at the Open Philanthropy Project, a famous researcher in the space, predicts 2037. And E.G. Erdil, who is one of the lead researchers at Epoch, who I mentioned before, and he says 2063 on median. So in E.G.'s case, he believes there probably will be some sort of AI winter, I think, and that might significantly delay the arrival of AGI. So in each of these three futures, I have a different possible strategy. So in the privatized AGI future, the most important thing to work on right now is AI governance in terms of regulations on large labs, and especially making them liable for damages their models cause, essentially pricing in the costs of misalignment so that AI labs can focus on solving alignment on their safety teams. Also, evals works, so evaluations by external auditors, which is very important to ensuring that actually these labs have the correct incentive structure to work on AI safety. Info security at the large labs, as discussed in the new report from the think tank RAND, securing model weights is very important to prevent, I guess, mass proliferation of AI weapons. And of course, to ensure that there isn't this arms race dynamic as much as possible. And lab safety teams as well are going to be particularly important in this paradigm because they're going to have access to the frontier models and they can perform the best tests and research. And to that end, MATS can help develop those lab safety teams as a hiring pipeline and also help external evaluations orgs the extent we can, and governance. In the nationalized AGI future, the most important thing right now is to be building international coalitions to prevent dangerous arms races, and all parties can come to the table here and help support this. And this requires the work of AI safety institutes, requires the work of representative bodies and summits. And I think it's vitally important we get started on this now in case the Leopold picture is true. And of course, this would also require one of the few things you can do to help AI safety if, in fact, the military starts to run the AI AGI project, is you can still, in your universities and your public research groups, or private research groups, or anywhere you might be, do good AI safety alignment research and then put that on the archive so that hopefully the militaries of these countries can use that research. And of course, if there are national projects, then some researchers might want to join their safety teams as well. It's a scary picture, of course. I think the more open we see, yeah, I don't know. There's many conflicting opinions about what is best in these pictures, but this is currently my best understanding. And in the AGI winter picture, the most important thing to work on is what it's called provably safe AI. So AI with very strong safety guarantees. And I think we're currently maybe a decade or more, maybe 2 decades out from this kind of thing being achieved, unless we can somehow accelerate the research progress. And examples of this research include Joshua Bengio's lab at Mila, where they're trying to build a cautiously safe scientist AI. David Dalrymple, his initiative at ARIA Research, which is a large UK government funding body for AI research, and perhaps others as well. And yeah, I'd say in that scenario, we'd also want to fund governance, evals, InfoSec, general alignment research, everything we can, just so we can be prepared at best for that world. So what can we do? In particular, I'll speak from the MATS perspective here. So our goals are threefold. 1, we want to accelerate high-impact scholars. 2, we want to support high-impact research mentors. And 3, we want to grow the AI safety research field by placing great hires on the lab safety teams at Anthropic and others, by producing research leads who can enter postdoctoral positions in academia, perhaps switching from different types of careers like physics or more general computer science into AI safety research. We also want to produce new founders of new types of AI safety organizations, such as Apollo Research. And all of these are real examples. We've helped place people at all of these organizations in these roles. So the first question I have is, what do new researchers need? And of course, we have here some MATS scholars on the right. And I think what they need are very strong technical skills. They have to be at the forefront of understanding how language models and other types of frontier, like auto-GPTs and other types of systems function. They have to have very high quality mentorship from people who know how to work on these systems. They need a basic understanding of the threat models posed by AI, including things like deception and instrumental convergence and that sort of thing, and perhaps used by bad actors for bioweapons and whatnot. They need to have community and support, and they need, if they want to get hired, particularly at some of these scaling lab safety teams, they need publications, and they need to be very fast coders. That's quite important. What do mentors need? Well, I have here 4 examples of mentors currently in the MATS program: Ethan Perez at Anthropic, Neil Nanda at DeepMind, Alex Turner, also at Google DeepMind, and Jesse Hoogland, founder of Timaeus. So mentors in general, they need research assistants like everyone else. They want to grow their projects. They need more bodies. They need a hiring pipeline sometimes. And I believe Ethan and Neil consider MATS to be like a substantial portion of their hiring pipeline for their teams currently in the safety and interpretability teams at Anthropic and DeepMind, respectively. They need experience as a manager. And Neil has spoken, for instance, about how he thinks MATS is a great opportunity for him to build and test his management skills in a lower stakes setting outside of DeepMind. They need support to scale projects. So, of course, Alex Turner and Jesse Hoogland pioneered new types of AI safety research fields while at MATS, such as activation steering, and in Jesse Hoogland's case, the singular learning theory, Devon-Turp approach to AI safety. What does the AI safety field need, lastly? Well, we recently conducted a report where we interviewed 31 key AI safety thought leaders under the condition of anonymity. And from their collective wisdom, we determined that their hiring needs were as follows. According to these three different archetypes. Connectors are individuals who build new paradigms. They often have a deep understanding of AI theory, but also can connect this to real empirical experiments. They're quite rare, and they're very, very impactful. You probably know many of them by name. Iterators further current paradigms. Essentially, they take what is like a high-level theoretical idea with some empirical grounding, and they just keep going. They solve all the problems. They work out what they can do. They're very good at running, large training runs on compute clusters and, leveraging cluster time efficiently. Amplifiers are the third archetype. They scale projects. So I would call myself an amplifier. I'm someone who perhaps could do research in some capacity, but is better suited to translating and amplifying researchers to produce more impact. And so based on the size of the organization, if they're a scaling lab, a growing technical safety org with 10 to 30 full-time equivalent employees, or a small org, they have different needs. So as you can see, iterators are actually the most common need of these organizations, and that's what MATS is principally going to be supporting. But we definitely don't want to discourage amplifiers, and you can see that they're the dominant need of these growing technical safety orgs as well. And because connectors are actually no one is hiring connectors at this point, but they're actually the founders of new projects. So they still need to be developed if we want to have more projects created, especially if we want the field to keep growing at the rate that I mentioned, 28% or higher. So it's just some examples of what these archetypes might be. Paul Cristiano, Buck, Schrodgeris, Evan Hubinger, Alex Turner. These names are familiar to you. This might be useful. If not, I can detail this later. And lastly, I'll just say this survey conducted by AE Studios, which was published on Westrong recently, discusses these two questions. So on the left is the total points allotted to alignment approaches. If you look at the blue, it shows that most people think the dominant, in the ICT field, think the dominant need is to understand existing models. And this is perhaps because they think that these are the models from which AGI will be built. They also think it's important to learn how to control the AI and to some extent make the AI solve scientific research and development problems related to AI safety itself. So if there's a way to build what they call an alignment MVP, or minimum viable product, which was a blog post written by Jan Lakey, former head of the super alignment team. There's a way to build a weak, safe AGI to help solve the alignment problem. Perhaps that would be one approach, but there's others who think that is much too dangerous. And theory work is the last important one here. And as surveyed, it seems that most people in the AICT field think that there are many more plausible approaches to alignment to be found. We have not found them all, far from it. So I can last speak for the last. Yes.
Sorry, just for clarification, I couldn't catch the difference between this ground truth and prediction. What do they mean?
So ground truth is what the actual survey said. So it's the aggregate of every individual. Red is they were also asked, what do you think other people in the field at large will say? So when they differ, it's because the blue is the true distribution and the red is their guess at the true distribution. So you can see that actually theory work is more prioritized than people thought it would be.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
So I can speak lastly just a little about MATS' strategy in the last few minutes. So we have 5 program elements. We believe in this portfolio approach over AI safety, which means we support many different agendas. We're trying to solve problems in every one of those 3 futures I described. We think apprenticeship with a mentor is very important. We think a community of peers and fellow researchers in an office space like LISA or at the MATS program or in other places is also extremely important. This is how universities thrive. They have the mentorship, they have the community. We think support and training is also important, but perhaps less important for more developed researchers. And we believe strong selection is warranted given how few expert researchers there are and how important their time is. And yeah, I think I'll skip through some of these slides because we don't have time. But I just wanted to just go over, yeah, this is the MATS program so far. As you can see, we were 30 people and then 60 scholars for 3 programs. And this current program is 90 scholars and we'll have about 47 mentors. And over the course of the whole program until now, before 6.0, which is going to start on Monday, we've supported 213 scholars and 47 distinct mentors. So there's a lot of them around. I'll skip over this as well, and I'll just say, out of our 1,221 applications for the current program, you can see that the same trend as indicated in the survey holds. Interpretability and evaluations are the highest priority to understand existing models, followed by the control and oversight research, and then lastly, the theory, which is this cooperative AI or agent foundations AI. And not as much governance as we'd like to see, perhaps because we're more of a technical program and we're missing applicants. And you can see our current portfolio of scholars. So 38% of our scholars are going to work on interpretability, 26% on oversight or control research, 16% on evaluations, only 3% on cooperative AI due to some last-minute cancellations by mentors, unfortunately, 11% on governance, and about 6% on value alignment from these organizations and more. These are some of the mentors. And I'll just say the scholar demographics are seen. So only about 15% have a PhD already. Many more have master's or bachelor's degrees. And the median scholar is 26, a master's student, and scores quite well on an industry coding framework. And as you can see, there's a strong gender balance towards men. This is about the same gender balance you see in US universities for science and specifically for like computer science and for physics and engineering. And lastly, I'll just say, I'm also a Manifund regranter. I've put out requests for proposals for all of these types of research initiatives and development initiatives. So if you're interested, you can put up a Manifund proposal and I might fund it. Thank you for having me speak.
Okay, thank you so much, Ryan, for such an informative talk. And I really appreciate that you talked about the currency of the prospect of AGI and the various very varying scenarios and how AI safety alignment community can tackle each scenario. And also your work in MATS, how you're building an ecosystem. And yeah, it has iterated 6 times now, and it's very scaling up. It was very amazing. So please, people in the audience, if you have any questions, please raise your hand or put it in the chat. Okay, so meanwhile, I have several questions. And the first one is like the overall environment of this AI safety field. I think you founded the MATS in 2022, and I think the situation has changed rapidly since these 2 years. Especially the government is very investing in this field relative to 2 years ago, I think, like AI Safety Institute in UK, and they are like funding projects. So do you think the role of like education program like MATS has changed in these 2 years, or what is your thoughts on the complementary role between government and MATS?
Yeah, so currently the US AI Safety Institute is not hiring at all, and we're based in the US. So as far as I can tell, they haven't put out any offers for funding or for hiring. So there's no pipeline there, as far as I'm aware. I do know there's several unpaid interns from various AI safety groups working with them. But MATS currently doesn't have a pipeline there. Hopefully that will develop. We do have several MATS alumni at the UK AI Safety Institute who are employees there, including the head of autonomous systems. And I think so they've reached out for recommendations for further hiring. And so I want to keep that connection going. I think that the AI safety institutes are very important, as I indicated, for building this one for the regulatory framework to help in the privatized AGI world, and two, for building these international coalitions and treaties like these summits we saw in the UK and Korea. Very important as well for that. So I hope that MATS can support them however we can. And it does seem they're hiring a lot of technical talent as well as potentially policymakers from within government.
Thank you. So maybe government's interest in this field is like even more important for MATS, because many applicants think this is a very important field, and maybe that's part of the reason why MATS 6.0 is attracting ever more applicants. So okay, so there's a question in the chat. It's from Bioshock. The first question is on the Leopard's prospect of AGI will be realized into 2027. How seriously is this taken within the AI safety community? So you mentioned that the prospect is very varied, but can you add something more to especially this claim?
Yeah, so I spoke on my slide 17, which my slides are linked in chat now. So on slide 17, I had this diagram representing three different forecasters' viewpoints. And that was Daniel Cocotillo, formerly of OpenAI, Ajay Kotra of Open Philanthropy, which is currently 90% of funding within the AI safety space, and E.G. Erdil of Epoch, who represents a diverse, different opinion, I think. It comes from a professional forecasting and economics background. So there are different opinions. And as far as I can tell, the best aggregate prediction is still 2031. But Leopold might be right. And there are people like Daniel who've gone on record to talk about why they think this is the case. So if you go to that distribution and you click that, you'll be directed to a less strong dialogue between Cocotillo, Kotra, and Erdil, where they discuss why they think why they constructed these distributions. And they were chosen not just because they had different views, but because they have great track records for certain types of forecasting and have very detailed models. So I don't yet know who's right. My money is something on 2031 or a bit sooner than that currently. Certainly people in the AI safety space take Leopold's opinion here somewhat quite seriously. I think some of them have spoken recently about being worried that he is what they call summoning the map or something. So, like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you say things like AGI 2027, maybe that makes everyone strive harder. I don't know. Certainly, I don't think Leopold has that kind of sway over the scaling labs, that build AGI. But perhaps the government is now paying more attention. I don't know if that's good or bad. In Leopold's mind, that's good. But perhaps that's a more worrying prospect that he realizes. I don't know. So.
Thank you. So the related question is, so given if it's the AGI by 2027 is a real thing, what kind of initiatives MATS and Align considered undertaking? So you explained about what should be what are the approaches if the AGI is coming sooner. So I think I want to ask what your advice on a new organization like us should be doing, given that the timeline is very short?
So several things.
Mhm.
One, I think that the fact Japan has an AI safety institute is very important. Japan is an important player on the world stage, and they should start to do more international coalition building and talk with the US and with the UK and others, and potentially find ways to, I would hope, slow progress worldwide to AGI, so we have a bit more time, and perhaps create international treaties and that kind of thing. So to the extent that the Japan AI Safety Institute can be benefited, that would be amazing. Yeah, that would be my first recommendation. To the extent that you guys can benefit them, that would be my top priority. My second priority would be, I think that there should be more MATS applicants from Japan. We currently have no scholars in the 90 scholars in the current program from Japan. And I think that I'm not quite sure why, but I think it might be, I'm not sure. Maybe they aren't applying. That would be great if we could have more people enter the MATS program or other programs from Japan, and then go back to Japan with that knowledge and that ability to build the local research community for AI safety in Japan. And things that Align can do right now, you could run versions of the AI safety fundamentals course to help people understand the theory and the background. You could run versions of the ARENA course, that's the Alignment Research Engineer Accelerator program, which I can put a link to in the chat. For that curriculum is free on GitHub. Yes, you could run local versions of that for people that you've selected for their alignment with, creating safe AI systems. You could also build a physical, like you could just have an office, a physical space in Japan where you can hold events, like networking events. You can perhaps sponsor some researchers who are working on special projects. You can have visiting researchers from various of Japan's best technical AI university programs. They can come in and kind of speak, or perhaps have a residency there. And this kind of community seems to be very, very good for building an AI safety or in general research presence. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, exactly. In Japan, we feel that in your chart, the top funnel part, the people who are vaguely interested in alignment is very small in population. So that's why I think organizations like us have a role to play. And yeah, exactly. We are just beginning AI safety fundamental course in Japanese this month, no, in July.
That's great.
So that's, yeah, I think we are very starting small scale, but hoping to scale up. So thank you. Okay, we have many questions, but if 宮西さん、もしお話しいただければお願いできますか？
ありがとうございます。Hi, so thank you for your insightful talk. And I read my question in the chat, and I believe theoretical and empirical study on model inner working of, for example, GPT-4 or Cloud3 or such kind of big models is quite important for the alignment. But the researchers have either one of the two problems, like one is that the teams in tech giants like OpenAI have limited opportunities for raising the security concerns to the public since the model is not disclosed. And second one is that the researchers in other organizations are more, of course, open, but they have limited or no access to the model itself. So my question is how we can facilitate those type of researches further.
Thank you. That's a good question. So in the first instance, for the first sub-question, I'll just say first, actually, I think that interpretability and evaluations work is very important. And there's a reason why those are the two largest branches of research MATS currently supports. And I do think that for some types, especially evaluations work, you do need to have access to the largest models. I think for some interpretability work, you do not need to have access to the largest models, especially the mechanistic work. Some of the higher level or concept-based interpretability work, maybe it benefits to have access to large models, but given that we've seen, I think, certain types of research on linear probes and other types of model editing, like the Rome paper, transfer across model sizes and architectures, I don't necessarily think that researchers in academic teams doing interpretability need access to the largest models. For evaluations, I think that it's actually quite important that people have access to the largest models, but I think that you don't necessarily need more than API access to do many different types of evaluations. And there are some open source smaller models that are also available for certain research, like at MATS. We had some scholars that fine-tuned Llama 2 chat to remove all the safety restrictions. And so that was interesting. That was a type of capability evaluation on open source models. But if models in the future are protected behind an API layer, then the kind of evaluations that you want to do are probably, unless they're the kind of evaluations that are like, is this model going to exfiltrate itself from the lab and run amok and cause havoc in the world? Like that, of course, needs access perhaps to more information about how the model is being built. And so for that reason, I think that government regulators and auditors and perhaps privileged access organizations, hopefully like Meter and Apollo Research, can have a role to play there. But I currently think it's dangerous if the public and academics have access to the very largest models that we're going to see in the next 3 to 5 years. At some point, we want to worry about the proliferation of those models. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Anyway, so to answer your first question, I think that we should have whistleblower protections at the large labs, and there should be like better disclosure of model capabilities to some extent as well. To some extent, this might facilitate race dynamics. So I think there's a trade-off here, but definitely this whistleblower protection should be enabled, I think. That's a matter for governments and for industry regulators and so on. 2, researchers and other organizations are more open, but whether to know access to the model itself, I think I've spoken about that in my answer before.
Yeah, privileged access should be a good way of facilitating. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. There's an interesting question from Hayasan, and he is asking the risks posed by proliferation of organizations and research institutes on alignment and safety in different countries. So shouldn't there be an emphasis on aligning and coordinating these organizations and institutes themselves? So what are your thoughts on the proliferating many organizations and how should they be coordinated?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I don't exactly know. So in regards to like field building organizations like mine, MATS has a policy of being extremely open about all of our methods, our techniques, everything we use for trying to empower scholars and researchers. And so we publish everything in our retrospectives on the blog website Less Wrong. We give presentations like this. I think there's a very good culture of openness there, and there's no competition in that respect. I guess we're all trying to do better. So I think that's very good, and we should share that information. When it comes to organizations that are doing evaluations of models, or perhaps writing policy, I think it's a more complicated question. So I know Apollo Research recently put out some study about like, oh, this we can show how the AI system, we have an example of how it demonstrates insider trading and lies to users. And it might be that the methods they use to elicit this behavior are not ones that should be shared with the public. So this is kind of perhaps an example of something where evaluations and regulation organizations might have special techniques that if they shared them would actually decrease safety. However, I do think they should be capable of publishing some types of research, and they should be required to publish some types of audits. In terms of organizations that are focused on specifically value alignment, which is to say making models cooperate with users, be honest, maybe adhere to certain types of constitutions. Yeah, I think this is a type of research that's very important to publish openly, because as I'm sure everyone knows, different cultures have different sets of values sometimes. Certainly, I hope all cultures support human life in general, support things like honesty and truthfulness, and community and harmony and such. But some cultures might have different ways of expressing these. And to that end, I think that it's very important that the kind of approach that is used to align models with human values is as open and as democratic as possible, especially if these models are going to have substantial influence on the world. So I think that this is particularly an aim for the large labs, right? I think that this is a big deal for them. And there are relatively few organizations working on what do we align models to, which values. So there's the Meaning Alignment Institute, there's the AI Objectives Institute, there's various ethics bodies. My current understanding is there are not enough AI ethics researchers who are actually thinking transformative AI and superintelligence is going to be here soon, and we need to know what to do with that. This is a mistake. I think there's this silly culture war where certain people in the AI safety and ethics community are kind of arguing with each other, and the AI ethics community seems to not respect, they don't feel the AGI, and that I feel is a mistake. I think that we need a lot more ethicists focused on this problem as well. And lastly, I think that to the extent there's value alignment research being conducted by groups at UC Berkeley Chai, which is one of the oldest AI safety research institutes, and the MIT Algorithmic Alignment Group, and then NYU Alignment Research Group. It's all published in peer-reviewed journals, and I think that is the best way to do it.
Yeah, it was very. The last part was very interesting. This cultural war between ethicists and AI safety researchers. I think such a debate happens in Japan as well in a smaller scale. And what do you have any ethicists in MATS, and do you do anything particular in order to mitigate this war, or what do you do to make ethics people feel the AGI?
So currently we don't have any ethicists per se in MATS mentors, but we do have two researchers from the AI Objectives Institute who work on, who have previously worked on projects to help with, I guess, producing moral graphs. I believe Matija Franklin was involved in that, and Philip Moray Tamai has been involved in similar research, and they're both at AI Objectives Institute. So we do support something like this. There aren't, I don't currently, I don't know if you have recommendations for ethicists who want to work on AI, AGI alignment problems, that would be great. I'd love to know more about them. Yeah, I guess other things we do. So I'm a Manifund regranter, and I've currently been considering several proposals from consortiums or individuals who want to form consortiums to unify the AI safety and ethics communities. And I think this is a very valuable role that you can have these organizations that try and represent many different parties and build a consensus, a position statement for submission to summits or conferences. And I think that's a valuable path forward. I'm excited to support that. My role as a Manifund regranter.
Okay, thank you. So this may be the last question from Hiroshi Yamakawa, who is the director of LINE. So Yamakawa-san, お願いします。
Thank you for your nice presentation. I'm a director of the LINE member, and I have a few questions. And the first question is your explanation of the intelligent explosion is very understandable, but I have many opportunity to explain the intelligent explosion to many general people, but many people doesn't understand because that's very not much for their intuitive sense. So how can you explain that intelligent explosion for many people? Is that a good way to explanation?
There are several reports I would recommend, and perhaps translations into Japanese would be good. There's one report, of course, by the open philanthropy researcher named Tom Davidson, and I've linked to that in one of my slides. The slide with the feedback loop links to that report. There's also an interesting report from Epoch that I mentioned as well. I can link that in the chat. And it basically it details the arguments for and against an intelligence explosion. I would say that like the word explosion is a little I would not use the word explosion. I think I would use the word feedback loop. Because an explosion implies very fast, like seconds, milliseconds. But I currently think that it would take longer for that loop. So there's currently a meticulous prediction for the time from weak AGI to superintelligence. And I think, if I'm not wrong, it's on the order of years.
In Boston, there are many times take off the slow and fast and middle.
Right. Even slow is not that slow.
Of course. Here people on here is very understandable that kind of thing, but it is hard to explain.
I think explaining to them, say like, what if the usual way that we do scientific research and development was kept the same? Like it's you're making hypotheses, you're testing them with experiments, and then you're integrating this into the. What if you could just automate part of that process and do it faster, right? That's the way I explain it.
And the next question is, I'd like to hear about the OpenAI's approach that's called the super alignment. The super alignment is, I think, not know everything, but my technical point is weaker AI control the stronger AI. Is that's cycling up that kind of things is is it possible? I cannot believe intuitively. So how do you feel about that kind of approach? And the related point is that team has now is very changed. So it will work or not. I'd like to know. Have a comment. I'd like to know about that kind of thing. So if you have a comment, please.
Yeah, so the particular approach, I think they were, among others, the super alignment team was particularly excited about weak to strong generalization, where a weaker trusted model with more permissions, perhaps could run for longer. It can inspect the brain of a stronger model. You can maybe deploy a lot of weaker models, right? So you use like a large amount of tricks to get the weaker model to be able to appropriately supervise and assess and constrain the strong model. And then when you've developed enough confidence from all your testing, then you can take that model and make that the weaker model and then build another one and just kind of keep recycling that approach. So that's called weak to strong generalization. And there's several papers on this. So there's an OpenAI publication there, and there's a separate paper from Redwood Research, who we're supporting at MATS, from Buck Schledgeris and Ryan Greenblatt and others. And that discusses their approaches to test weak to strong generalization, and they find somewhat promising results. There are dissenters, as of course famously, Nate Soares of Machine Intelligence Research Institute of MIRI has gone on record in debating Holden Konofsky, another AI safety tastemaker. And so you can see their disagreements here about whether or not they think this will work. But I think it's worth a try.
I think also anyway, the trying is very important for this stage. I think.
I think it's important to try in ways that if you fail, it's not that bad.
I agree. Thank you very much.